be successful, you gotta have to have them all. You have to have a sponsor, you have to have a mentor, you have to have a coach. If you get really, really lucky, you'll just have some fans who are just in your corner, regardless if you're hitting or missing.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Chat with Charli. We have an esteemed guest here with us today, Dakota. Thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
It is. Hello, it's Charli, your go-to for mastering the art of public speaking and career advancement. Welcome to Chat with Charli, where industry professionals share their invaluable insights and advice to help you excel within your desired industry. Get ready to dive deep into the minds of accomplished individuals as they unravel strategies, share personal experiences, and provide actionable tips that you won't get anywhere else. Whether you're looking to advance your career, start a new venture, or simply stay ahead in your industry, this is the place to be. Tune in and level up your expertise with Chat with Charli. So, if you don't mind, I would love to start with the public speaking game, just to get us kind of relaxed. Willing to play?
Yes,
okay,
indeed,
don't
indeed,
cheat.
Indeed, I mean, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, so I don't know,
So in this cup is a bunch of topics.
Okay.
You are going to try to talk about a topic for as long as you can without saying the word I will start the timer.
Alrighty. Shoes. Topic is shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So sneakers app. What's up with sneakers app? I try to get all these different shoes. When I grew up, you would just go to the mall, you would find your shoes, you would beg your parents for the money, then you would beg your parents to drive you to the mall, and then you would get the shoes, and then you would beg them to let you wear the shoes wherever you want to wear the shoes. Then you had to keep them clean because you had your church shoes, you had your dress shoes, you had your school shoes, you had your play shoes, but you had shoes, and you were just able to get the shoes that you wanted. Now they have the sneakers app where it's like you're gambling and you're trying to get the shoes. Now I have the money, but it's like I'm gambling. Instead of just begging my parents for money, I'm begging technology to allow me to use my money so I can buy the shoes that I want, all right?
Yeah.
So all these retro Jordans that came out back in the 80s and 90s, I'm like, why am I begging an app to allow me to buy these shoes, right? So now I find myself going after shoes that I don't even really like. Like these I have on, I don't even really like that much, but I was able to get them. So I loved it, right?
Because you're cold at this. This is all you, right? Man, I wanted to hear more. I was going to tell about that.
I have a lot of repressed anger about the sneakers app.
I felt it.
So finally sneakers app did something right that allowed me to talk without saying like.
Well, excellent public speaking skills.
Thank you, sneakers app, for bringing up this frustration.
Exactly. Okay, so I just have some few questions. I'm very excited to kind of get to know you more and talk to you further about your industry. So if you could please start off by telling us what industry you're in and a little bit of the background that brought you to this industry, and then what it is that you exactly do.
Yeah, thank you again for having me, Charli. So happy to be here and talk about this. I'm inside the higher education industry, and I'm really excited about that because I got inside this industry very unintentionally. When I went to college, I started working inside the student union. It was a work-study job. I just wanted to have a job that did two things. Pretty much pay me a little bit, but it let me have some fun. That's pretty much all I wanted to do. So working inside the student union did exactly that. And that actually introduced me into higher ed. So I graduated college, got my biochemistry major. I graduated, I came back to school to get an MBA. And when I was getting my MBA, the president of the university asked me to serve as the director of student activities, which I didn't really call it being a student affairs youth practitioner. And I was like, okay, it sounds real fancy. I don't know if I can do that. But pretty much it was working in higher ed, and it was allowing students to do things outside of the classroom, right? So a lot of people go to college, a lot of people go to school, and of course you have your classes, but that's not really the thing that people typically remember about college. They remember all of these other things that they do, whether it's join an organization or NAACP, SGA, Greek life, or going to party, doing all of these, things that you would typically call extracurricular, but co-curricular. And the research tells us that those are the things that actually allow students to be successful in the classroom. And so when I got my feel for that, I said, you know what, this is really important to me because this is what happened with me in college. I didn't really realize that's what was going on. But when I went to college, I was a biochemistry major, and that wasn't a whole lot of fun. Right? Organic chemistry isn't a lot of fun. But being in the organizations and having the friends and the connections outside the classroom are the things that allowed me to be successful inside the classroom and allowed me to be a person who graduated, which of course that's why we all go to college. And so that's what I do. I work in higher education. Right now, I try to ensure that the students that we recruit to college are provided with the resources that they need so that they can learn inside and outside the classroom so they can graduate and get the jobs of their desire.
Mm-hmm. And what is your actual role? What's the title?
So right now I'm acting Chief Executive Officer, which is the equivalent to a president.
Mm-hmm. Very
right
very
now.
Humble answer.
Yeah.
I'm just the Chief Executive Officer. What? The name is the president. So what motivated? I think you spoke to it a little bit, but just specifically, what motivated you to get into higher education?
Yeah, that's a really, I would try to answer without going all over the place, but I love that question. And so my mission, I feel like in life is really to help people, help talented individuals to get the resources that they need to go on and be as great as they could possibly be. And I say that because when I first graduated college, what I really wanted to do was be a talent agent. That's what I wanted to do. So when I got my degree in biochemistry, I worked for about a year in oil and gas. I saved up money. I moved to Los Angeles and I worked inside the mailroom of a talent agency because that's where you're supposed to start until you become an agent. So I said, okay, I'll go inside the mailroom. I'll be there for a few weeks or something like that. I'll get the promotions and, in about a year, I'll be a talent agent. I'll make millions of dollars and all that good stuff like that. And that's not how it works. So I go inside the mailroom and everyone in the mailroom has like MBAs and JDs. And I'm thinking like, whoa, I thought I was like overeducated because I had a biochemistry degree and I was the least educated person in the mailroom. So I did my stint in the mailroom for almost a year and they were like, hey, in order to really get a promotion, you're gonna have to go back to school and get your MBA. So that's why I went back and got my MBA and that's why I got in higher ed. And I realized when I got back and I started working there at the university, there was a lot of students, particularly those who look like me, who are not being successful. They had a high stopout rate, a high dropout rate. They were not, doing things that was going to lead to them getting their degree. And I thought that was very unfortunate. And then I thought back about my time in college and what made it, special and, meaningful and all of those things. And again, it wasn't going inside the organic chemistry lab. It was really being involved. And so I said, well, I need to do something to make sure that these students are going to be as involved as possible so that they can be successful inside the classroom. And when I started doing that, I realized it wasn't that big of a difference between, being a talent agent, except for at that time I was making like $25,000 a year. We can talk about that later. But, pretty much what I was trying to do was all of the students were my clients, right? And I was trying to service them just same way I would if I was an agent trying to get a client into a movie or trying to get them to be a producer or director, whatever the case may be. Now I have thousands of students who I'm trying to connect to their careers, and I'm trying to support them by giving them the programs and giving them the motivation and the resources and all of those things. And so that was what really encouraged me and motivated me.
So it almost seems like you enjoy the idea of service.
Yeah.
So even with you being a talent agent, you still had that same level of service mindset.
Oh, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
And it kind of goes back to some of the topics we've talked about with transferable skills.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
you go in
yeah,
thinking you're going to do this one thing, you choose to do something different, but then you're noticing that I'm using a lot of the same skills that I would have done in this field and this one. So it doesn't sound as alarming or frightening to switch your path.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I tell people all the time because when they ask me what did I go to school for undergrad, I tell them biochemistry. They're like, you're not using it now. And I'm like, actually I am. I'm using it in a lot of different ways, and I can try to connect different things about why. I was having a conversation last week, and we were trying to deal with a crisis and a situation, and I said, well, we need to balance the equation. And they were like, what? And I'm like, well, in chemistry, when you have equations and they're not balanced, you have a very unstable reaction and things can blow up. So right now we're dealing with this equation that's not balanced and we just need to balance it. And this was me still trying to pull up some of my background to what I'm doing now, right?
That can actually, we might want to stop the podcast right now, just talk about that. Balance the equation. You don't balance the equation. Look at that. Look, now I'm a bio.
There you go.
Okay, so when you're thinking about the field of higher education, and we kind of know some of the background that you've had, what do you do to stay up to date within the field, right? We oftentimes get into these industries and then where does our learning come?
Yeah.
So what do you do to stay up to date within your industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, when I first entered into the industry, I would try to go to the professional development conferences. And those were cool because, you know, you like to travel for work and you feel important and you get to go there and network and meet a lot of individuals. And that was important because you definitely want to be around people who know more than you. And it shouldn't be that hard when you first start out in your career because you don't know a lot. But a lot of people think they know a lot. So you really have to understand that there's a lot out there to learn in any industry, but in higher ed particularly, you can deal with the governance aspect, the administration aspect, the finance aspect, the student success aspect. I mean, there's a lot of different things, right? You know, athletics, there's just a lot of different aspects in higher ed, and so no one knows everything. And so early on, I would go to conferences, but of course, you know, conferences aren't free or even cheap, depending on where they are, and you have to fly to stay there and hotels and all of those things. So then I started to just read. I'm someone who I have a yearning to try to learn as much as possible. So I like to read. So on my phone, I have Google Alerts set for like 10 different things as it pertains to higher ed. And every day I go through those emails and I see what's being written out there from a lot of different aspects. And those are the kind of things that can keep you up to date. And those are the kind of things that allow me to be, you know, knowledgeable in the field, right? And so that's something that I continue to try to do. Have conversations with individuals who have the subject expertise. Again, a lot of times when folks say, oh, you're the president, so that means you know everything. It's like, no, that means I know very little about everything, and I have to connect with the people who do know everything, right? And that's how I learn from them. You know, it goes back to something my mom told me when I was in grade school. This is a thing that keeps me grounded in terms of how I try to learn. I started school a year early, so I didn't know how to tie my shoes. And the shoes I wanted, going back to shoes. She wanted me to wear these Velcro shoes because I didn't know how to tie my shoes. And I was like, nah, Mom, I'm not about to be out here in the first grade wearing these Velcro shoes. I'm about to have on, you know, my kicks and my laces, and I'll figure it out. And so she's kind of like, we tried to practice tying my shoes so I knew how to tie. So she drops me off one day, and I'm getting out the car, and she's like, hey, your shoes are tied, you know, let me come around and tie your shoes. I'm thinking like, nah, I can't have my mom tie my shoes.
In first grade?
Yeah, I'm going to tie them. So I tried to tie them up myself while we were in the car. I got out the car quick. I took like 10 to 15 steps. My mom was kind of still there in the line. I tripped over myself, fell, embarrassed myself. Mom gets out, you know, I'm trying to keep it together, not cry and all of those things. But Mom told me something I'll never forget, and I use it to this day. She said, son, you can't learn something you think you already know. You don't know how to tie your shoes, and you think you know how, so you can't learn how, right? So going back to like higher ed and how I stay abreast of things, I take this approach of there's a lot that I don't know, right? And I just try to act like I have an empty cup. Let me try to fill up my cup, because if you think your cup is full, you're not going to try to pour anything in your cup because you think it's already full, right? So that's kind of how I try to stay, you know, abreast to everything. There's a lot of good resources out there, and that's just kind of what I do, and I think it's helped me a lot.
Yeah, tremendously.
Yeah.
Take a look. It's in the book. Right? Yeah. So what I got from this conversation was your mom and open a book.
Open a book.
Right? You know,
read.
Yeah. Right? And so
read.
no, but that is something that is anyone can do.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's nice about it. Anybody can get out there, open their phone, because everybody from this point has a phone. Get on there, get on Kindle, Amazon, type in the topic that you're interested on. At this point, we even have YouTube videos and all kind of other resources. But like you said, you have to be open-minded and know that you don't know everything.
There's
right? You have to humble yourself to know. And so I really like that. Big ups to your mom too. You can't learn something that you think you already know.
Big ups to mom. So
put that.
Be careful with those things that you think you know. Right. That's
right.
kind of the approach I've been using now for over 30 years because of that little lesson for me not tying my shoes. But I still didn't go back to the Velcro.
You didn't go back to the Velcro. Well, see now you're not going to want to hear this. I don't want to upset you because we had a little issue earlier. But nowadays, the new shoes with no shoestrings are really fly.
Yeah,
No, it's going to hurt you because it's not fair.
I
You're
know,
going to say,
right?
when I was 6,
Yeah, those were
we
cool.
didn't have those.
Yeah.
Now they got the slide-ons, the
Now they
slip-ups.
in.
Yeah, now they don't want the shoestrings. There's a lot that was also with that, too, with determination, because you were also showed your character with that in just first grade, you were determined to figure it out.
I was going to figure it out.
Yeah,
I was going to figure it out.
So, has there been any organizational challenges within your industry?
Oh yeah, so not only do I work in higher ed, I work in this subset of higher ed called HBCUs. Historically Black colleges and universities. And HBCUs are somewhat in an interesting place right now because all of them for the most part, are still trying to get what they were owed in terms of why do they exist in the first place, right? So I was having this conversation with an individual who was not knowledgeable in HBCUs, saying like, why do we need HBCUs or why do we even have HBCUs? And so going back again, H stands for historically, back in the day, individuals who looked like us were not allowed to go to what we would call predominantly white institutions. So the government created institutions for Black people called HBCUs. Now back there, they weren't called HBCUs; they were just called schools that only Black people could go to. And typically, these were the schools for descendants of enslaved individuals. And the first one opened, in the late 1800s or the mid 1800s. So they've been around now for over 200 years, and a lot of them, mostly all of them, are still under, funded. So, for example, the institution I work at is a public institution, meaning that it should be state, supported, but we do not receive the support from the state that other institutions like the University of Texas or Texas A&M or Texas Tech, that they receive. And so one of the challenges that we continue to try to, grapple with is how can we advocate to the state to give us the funding that we deserve, because we are trying to work with a population of students who need those particular resources. And also, if those students don't attend HBCUs, a lot of times other institutions are not interested in trying to educate them. And so a lot of people will tell you based off the research, if it wasn't for HBCUs, you wouldn't have the Black middle class or the Black upper class a lot of times, right? So if you look back to a lot of the most, famous Black people, a lot of them did attend HBCUs, and that's still the case now. So HBCUs make up less than 3% of the total amount of higher education institutions. But as it relates to Black professionals, they educate over 75% of Black doctors, 80% of Black pharmacists, 50% of Black judges, 70% of Black individuals who have a PhD, about 80% of Black, dentists. They produce greatly, particularly for our communities, and they've been doing so since they have been in, existence. However, we do not get the resources that we need. So that's one of the challenges that we continue to, to really deal with, is kind of how can we fund and support these institutions that are doing great work, and it has always done great work. And if it wasn't for these institutions, individuals like myself definitely probably wouldn't be in the place I'm in now.
Right. Yeah. Which goes to show just how dynamic the student population and the staff are to be able to produce such greatness with such adversity.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You give somebody certain situations, and it's almost like that story. Let's say you give them lemons and you make lemonade. Everybody can't make lemonade. Some people are looking at those lemons thinking, that's all I got, right? And so it's really impressive to hear that type of level of challenge and how we're still constantly seeing HBCUs produce such great quality individuals.
We really do, and it's fascinating because you think back to, again, a purpose for these institutions in terms of there was literally, you can't find another group of individuals where it was illegal to educate them, right? So we go back 250 years and say it was illegal to educate us, and now again, look at what we've been able to do as a people. And if it wasn't for the vehicle of HBCUs, that would be pretty much impossible, right? Because then it wasn't that long ago where we literally just could not attend a predominantly white institution. That wasn't that long ago.
And you're still continuing to educate people that are getting told no elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just a different form of no.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not an illegal no.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's a legal no.
Yeah.
I almost don't know which one's worse.
I know,
you know what I mean?
know.
So as we kind of switch gears to some of your personal motivations and inspirations, what keeps you motivated and passionate about your work? Because I hear it in your voice. I feel that you really love what you do.
Yeah.
Where's that coming from?
I'm someone who I believe in equity and equality. I have a passion for ensuring that individuals get that opportunity that they deserve, that they've been working so hard for, right? So if I look back to an individual who is 16 years old, 17 years old, whatever it is, and they're trying to go to college, they're trying to go to college for a reason. They're trying to experience the upward, mobility of getting a college degree, getting that job, getting that income, having the lifestyle of, having a certain car or house or a vacation or whatever the case may be. The shoes, right? Having the shoes, having those things, and they deserve those things, right? They deserve those things. These are individuals who say, listen, I'm going to work hard in my field, in my discipline, and I'm going to try to make myself better. And these are individuals who already made the commitment. And so when you're working with people who've already made their commitment, it's easy for me to be passionate about them because I say, well, if you've already made the commitment of doing the hard part, the least I can do is support you in your endeavor. But too oftentimes we have individuals, particularly again in HBCUs and higher ed, they don't have that support, unfortunately. So I say, well, what can I do to support them? How can I go hard for them every single day? How can I advocate regardless if I'm having a conversation with the governor or the lieutenant governor or a representative or, a CEO of an organization who is saying that they want to give us some funds to endow, scholarships and all of these things. How can I make sure I'm telling the best story possible to ensure that these people that they're never going to see and probably they're never going to meet are having someone in that room fighting for them so that they can have the resources that they need so that they can experience the upward, mobility of getting that college degree. And it's really challenging because we deal with a population of individuals where they will probably be the first in their, families to get their college degree. And then what happened if no one's there to help them out? Because we all got to where we got to by somebody helping us. And I think that that's a part of my journey and my story as well. I've had a lot of mentors and, coaches and sponsors and a lot of people who made sure Dakota was doing what he was supposed to do. Despite my best efforts of wanting to do something different, they made sure I stayed on, the straight path. And I think I was able to enjoy a certain amount of, success in my life. So you got to pay it back. You got to ensure that you're doing it for someone as well. If you're not, then what are you even doing here, right?
Right. Which really leads to my next question, which you were kind of already speaking to. Are there any role models that you had or sources of inspiration that really helped you advance within your career? What did that look like?
Oh, yeah. That's a great question, a very important question, because I have this conversation with a lot of individuals who are just kind of starting off in their careers, and it can be any industry. Tell people all the time, you got to get you 3 people that you really got to have. Really 4, right? Really 4. You can get by with 3, though. You got to have a mentor, you got to have a coach, you got to have a sponsor. Those 3 things are different things, and a lot of people don't know the difference between those things. So, I want to talk a little bit about that, if that's okay. Yeah. So a coach, just like in sports, a coach is somebody who can coach you up in terms of you're playing a game or you have some skills and they're trying to help you refine those skills specifically to the game that you're playing, right? So if you are a basketball player, your basketball coach is teaching you how to do things on the court that's going to put you in the best possible position so that you can, score a basket or, defend a basket from being scored. And they know a lot of times they've played the game, they are part of the game, they know the game very intimately, and they can talk to you very specifically about some things that you're doing right and doing wrong. A mentor is someone who cares about you just unapologetically. They care about you. They may not know anything about your field. They may not know sports at all, so they can't necessarily help you be a great basketball player, but what they can do is give you guidance on just how to be the best person you can be. Right? Because if you are not the best person you can be, then perhaps you can't be the best basketball player that you can be. So they talk to you more at a higher level in terms of how do I encourage you outside of your work life, in a sense. A sponsor is somebody who's literally going to promote you to get those opportunities, right? So you have your coach, and their coach is coaching you different things, but maybe your sponsor is somebody who's talking to their coach about putting you in the game because they themselves are credible and they can go and tell the coach, hey, I've worked with Dakota. He deserves his opportunity. Put him in the game, and I have faith that he's going to hit the shot that he needs to hit. But if nobody had told the coach to put me in the game, maybe I don't get that opportunity. So you need a sponsor who's going to actually make sure that you stay connected to the opportunities that you need. So those are the three things you absolutely need. Now, the fourth thing is really important, and a lot of people don't have it. I did, and it was very important, particularly being a black male. You need a cheerleader, right? You need a cheerleader. You need a fan. You know, I had fans in my life who showed up, just like sports, whether I was being good or bad, they showed up and they rooted for me. They weren't here to tell me that I didn't do the best. They wasn't here trying to tell me that I should have did X, Y, Z. They were just cheering me on in all of my sometimes terribleness, in all of my whatever I had going on. They were just here to rock with me, regardless of we were winning or losing. As a team, Team Dakota had a couple people who was just, you know, shouting from the bleachers, giving me that encouragement that helped me gain the confidence. So even if I shot the shot that the coach told me how to shoot and the sponsor got me into that place and I missed it, my fans were still cheering for me. Like, you gonna hit it the next time. You gonna, you know, don't hang your head down. It's gonna be okay. And so if individuals go out there and get those type of relationships, I haven't seen anybody yet who has those relationships who have been unsuccessful, and I haven't seen anybody yet who had who didn't have those things really be successful. You gotta have to have them all. You have to have a sponsor, you have to have a mentor, you have to have a coach. If you get really, really lucky, you'll just have some fans who are just in your corner, regardless if you're hitting or missing.
Personal growth doesn't have to be done alone. Seek out trusted individuals to take the journey with you. Who's my sponsor?
Yeah.
Who's my cheerleader?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And all of them, in some way, shape, or form, have to have some type of relationship with you.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
For it to really make an impact.
You know, and I add to that, not only have a relationship, but have an organic,
right,
you know, authentic, genuine relationship. So nowadays, in terms of, you know, social media, you get all these connections. On LinkedIn, I have like 10,000 connections, and a lot of people are like, hey, you know, can you be my mentor? And I'm like, I don't even know you.
Right.
Like, I gotta, and it's not like I'm saying no because I don't know you.
Yes.
It's I can't be a good mentor because I don't know you.
Right.
I have to know, what are you passionate about? What do you get enthusiastic about? What are the challenges you're having? Again, a coach, I have to know if you're right-handed or left-handed, because if you're shooting left-handed, I don't even know you're left-handed. I may try to tell you shoot your right-hand. That's going to be some terrible coaching. It's going to be some terrible coaching, right? So you're absolutely right. You have to have a relationship with somebody, and it's best when it's that genuine relationship, because sometimes there are going to be some awkward moments. And if you don't have that genuine relationship to fall back on, then that's going to be really tough.
Right. No, I really think that's powerful, and that's something that people can go out and think about right now, right? Because I'm sitting here thinking about that. I'm like, who do I have in my life that fit in those categories? And I'm able to name them.
That's good.
And I really do agree with you that they have all attributed to my success or to where I am today.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and you're right, that cheerleading piece, that's almost the hardest one.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
You know,
to really have someone that even when you fail is willing to cheer you on and say, hey, let's keep going.
You know, just a quick story from my upbringing, because I tell people all the time, your lifestyle has the ability to impact your leadership style, right? And there's a lot of people want to be leaders, and that's great, but you really have to check in with your lifestyle and see, hey, do you have a lifestyle that can accommodate you being a leader?
Right.
Because you have to be willing to serve, and you get put on the spotlight and all those things. So part of my upbringing, I was very lucky, had two amazing grandparents on both my mom's side and my dad's side. So I had all four of my grandparents. Now, had a great relationship with all of them, but my paternal grandfather, he was one where a lot of people would say that I was spoiled. Now, of course, I don't subscribe to that, but let them tell it. I was spoiled, right? And so I remember one time my mom was like upset with me because I had done, you know, something in school or something happened. I can't remember what, but I typically would go and stay with my grandparents over the weekend. I would just go to their house, have fun. This is what I did. So my mom tells my grandfather, like, hey, you know, I don't want DJ to have his Game Boy, whatever it was, because he's in trouble or he has something going on. And my grandfather, I'll never forget, he kind of choked with like, listen, those are y'all rules. This is my grandson, and I'm here to support him, and that's it. Like, I'm not here to discipline. I'm not here to coach. I'm not here to. I am here to cheer him on. So if he wants to spend 10 hours playing the game, then that's what I'm going to support him doing. And I'm like, man, you know, and growing up, I look back on that even now, like, I mean, yeah, maybe he could have disciplined a little bit, but I'm glad he didn't, because that was just my cheerleader.
Yes.
He was like, this is my road.
Yes.
You coach, you mentor,
Yeah.
you know, you sponsor.
Yeah.
I am cheerleading him on. And that's really tough to find. Again, a lot of times for black men particularly, even for black women particularly, you know, it's really hard to just find people who are like, listen, I am going to cheer for Charli. Right. Whatever Charli is doing, I'm cheering for Charli. I don't care what we got going on. If Charli's involved, I'm cheering it on. I'm not going to ask her if this is a good idea. I'm not going to ask her if she should make note. That's not what I'm doing. If she's doing this, then I'm cheering it on. So that's a tough one to find, though. It's really important.
And everything was just flooding through my mind as you were doing that. But what's also dynamic with that piece is being able to recognize when someone is not playing their role, right? And not getting caught up in some of the things that they're saying, being able to recognize when they may be almost code switching, but role switching, right?
Role
you know,
switching,
and I say, because I tend to sometimes have this problem when people call me, I'm a problem solver.
Okay.
I'm a natural problem solver.
Okay.
You hear, I just want to fix it.
Yeah.
And I have to have my friends have to slow me down and tell me and family, hey, right now, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want you playing that role.
Yeah, just trying to talk to you.
Yeah, I just want to vent. And so I had to learn as I started getting older to tell people, hey, stop real quick. Yeah. Which role?
Yeah, that's important.
What hat do you want me to put on?
Let's do some level setting. What do you need out of me in this
What
space?
do you need out of me?
That's important.
You know, in this place. You know, do you want me to start or hey, I just want you to sit and I just want you to listen.
It's like, man, I can do that.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, now Dakota, I can do it. You know, it's a challenge, but I can do it. But it just kind of made me think about so many more things that as you're saying that. But that is very good information. To have those four people, you know, is not easy, but it's something that can be done. But it has to be purposeful.
Yeah, it has to be purposeful.
I know you mentioned a little bit earlier too about how it's difficult for a lot of black men to get those relationships and to build those relationships. What do you think you could say to other black men that are out there about that piece? Like, what was it about you that allowed you to be able to have those relationships? What did you do? Yeah.
I think I was willing to understand first off that it was needed, right? That I wasn't going to be able to get to where I wanted to get to by just trying to pull myself up by my bootstraps and not listen to anyone and not take advice and not take guidance and do it on my own. And that's easy for us to do because sometimes we feel like we have to do it. I'm here to tell you, you don't have to do it because you can't do it, and no one's done it. There has literally not been a single person I can think of who's been highly successful who has done it all on their own. Everyone has had to have some level of support and guidance and all of those things. And so we take it from there. One of the other things I will also say is those individuals don't always have to look like you. Early on, particularly my sponsor, still did not look like me. The individuals early on in my career who got me into the rooms and into the spaces that I was in and was able to really display the skill set that I had and the ability that I had, they did not look like me at all. They were the exact opposite, right? But I had to understand that their role wasn't to look like me, right? Their role was to be my sponsor and to help me in some capacity. As it relates to mentor, sometimes people have mentors and they're the wrong mentors. What I mean by that is, you know, we go to individuals who make us feel comfortable versus really pushing and challenging us because we may not want to hear what they have to say. One of my mentors I still use till this very day, he still helps me in a mentor capacity to this very day. He's often telling me things that I don't want to, necessarily hear or listen to, or that's tough to digest. But we have that role, we have that relationship to where it allows for me to know that he has my best interest at heart, right? And I think that sometimes we may have a lot of hubris or we may have a lot of arrogance, and it gets really tough to digest that pill because it's very humbling to have those, particularly those three. The cheerleader one is still hard to find in a genuine capacity, but having those other three, you have to be willing to understand that you may not be all that in a bag of chips right now, right? It's like somebody's trying to coach you, and you're like, wait a second, I've hit this, shot shooting like this before, but it's like, is it sustainable? Is it gonna work? When you have a defender in your face, or is it going to work if your legs are tied? Whatever the case may be, So those are some of the things that I would suggest for our Black brothers, particularly like, listen, you can't do it all. You have to understand that if you really want to get to where you aspire to get to in life, you have to find someone who has been there in some capacity, and you have to be willing to listen to the advice and the guidance that they'll give you. And then also, you have to be willing to do that for someone else. We can't be stingy once we reach a place that we didn't know that we have the ability to reach. I see that happen a lot of times too, in terms of individuals who they get to a certain place, they get a certain title, they live in a certain building, they drive a certain car, they have a certain salary, all of those things, and now they feel like they don't need help, and they don't feel like they need to help others. And to me, that's a very poor individual, right? You still need help, and then you still need to help other individuals, right? I was having a conversation with a president of a university. He and I were together in a space, and I asked him if he was going to a conference. I told you earlier in my career I would go to conferences. And he said, nah, I'm not going to go this year. And I was like, oh, wow, is there some type of conflict that you have with travel, or is it something going? Because, I get being busy. He was like, nah, I'm just not going anymore because, I go there and I don't get anything out of it. I don't get, fed. And I looked at him interested, and I was like, oh, okay. And I guess he could kind of see on my face that I didn't really like that answer. And he was like, what? Do you disagree? Like, come on, Dakota, be honest. You're going to go to that conference, and are you going to learn something, like, for real? And I told him, I said, well, brother, if you're going to a place and you're not being fed, then maybe it's your job to cook the meal and feed others, right? Like, maybe it's your job to feed people. Maybe your job isn't to eat. Maybe your job is to feed. And again, being a leader, you do get some type of, satisfaction. I know I do, out of feeding someone, right? It's a very good experience that you can get. And so that's what I would tell, because it's not a lot of us. So we have to make sure that we are trying to support and encourage and build as many individuals as possible.
Right. I like when we talked about maybe it's your time to cook.
Yeah.
Because when I was an educator, I would always advocate for my kids to, whatever lesson you just learned, if you really think you know it, try to teach it.
Try to teach it, yeah.
Right? We make jokes about teachers, but it's a lot harder than people think, right? You know it that well, then I want you to flip it, and I want you to teach it.
Yeah.
And if you could teach it, then you're right, you really know it. So it goes back to what you were saying. If you think you really know it so well, then cook it.
Feed
it to others.
You can't get fed any longer.
Right. Because then you learn through that process. You learn through teaching. You teach others, you learn something. Somebody else has a different perspective. They raise their hand, they ask you something else, and then sometimes it stops you. You say, well, you know what, I can think about that. Let me think about that. That's a whole different perspective, right?
No, absolutely.
So we're kind of coming to a close here. I hate for it to come to a close. I feel like I'm learning so much from you, and I really think this is going to be dynamic for those that are watching. But if you could do it all over again to get you to where you are today, would you, and it could be done, but would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I've had an incredible journey thus far in higher education. I've been able to experience a lot of different things in my career that I wanted to experience. It's so interesting because earlier in my career, I actually told myself, hey, I want to be a president. I want to be the CEO of an institution. And now I'm getting that opportunity, and not only getting an opportunity, but getting it at an institution I'm very passionate about as well. But one of the things that I would definitely do different, although it's tough to say you do something different because, everything had a reason to get you here. But going back to college, you remember I told you, I said when I started college, I was a biochemistry major. I knew from Jump Street that I didn't want to be a biochemist. I knew from Jump Street that I didn't want to be MD, which is what I was going to school for. I knew from Jump Street, but I didn't necessarily have the courage to really be honest about those things. And so a lot of the struggles that I had were struggles I brought on myself because I was trying to be what people wanted me to be versus what I knew that I could be. So I just did that for 4 years, and I was fortunate to not only graduate, but graduate in 4 years and not go off the deep end too much, because I had some really dark times in terms of like being in this organic chemistry lab for 10 hours or being inside this class for 5 hours and just having the mental health, it was weighing on me, right? So it was really tough to get through that curriculum because I knew that wasn't, necessarily what I wanted to do. So I'll tell individuals all the time, like, listen, you may be in a career right now, you may be in a program right now, you may be in a situation right now that you're in only because individuals expect you to be in it. And you don't have to subscribe to those external forces. You know within your gut, within your resolve, what you should do, what you want to do, and how you're going to do it. And you just need that courage, to do it. One of my favorite quotes of all times by our sister, Maya Angelou. She has a lot of dope ones. She has a lot of amazing.
Yeah, we can sit here all day.
Just quote Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
My number two.
You may not be doing the phenomenal woman though.
Yeah.
You might not do that. That might not be one of your favorites. It's one of mine.
It's a good one though. It's a good one. But a lot of people's favorite quote from her is, when people show you who they are, believe them. And that is a good one. That's my number two. My number one is, courage is the most important virtue, because without it, you can't constantly practice any other virtue. And so you have all these virtues where you're like, well, I'm an honest person, and I'm a kind person, and I'm a this person. But when it's hard to be those people, can you still be it, right? Like, I'm a very patient person, but what happens when you running 15 minutes late and it's traffic and somebody cut you off? Are you real patient then? Probably not, right? And so courage, she says, is the most important virtue, because without that virtue, you can't constantly practice any of those other virtues that are important as well. And so I'll tell anybody right now, again, whether you're in that career, you're in that job, you're in that program, you're in that relationship, you're in whatever you're in, if it doesn't feel natural to you and you feel as if you have a homeostasis pulling you, I'm trying to pull it up.
Yeah, I see that.
Your homeostasis is pulling you to a different environment or a different, situation, listen to it. Listen to it. Don't be scared to get in and make that mistake. Fail forward, fail fast, and then ultimately you probably won't fail at all, because you're gonna learn, you're gonna build your capacity on things, you'll get better. And so being comfortable and at ease is it may be nice, it may feel good for the time being, but it won't serve you in the long run. If you have that passion, then dive head first in that passion. That's what I would tell individuals. And if I can go back and do it all over again, that's something that I would definitely make sure I do. I would really spend time with myself learning, what am I passionate about? Me, not what other people are passionate about for me, but what am I passionate about? And then how can I lean into that, and how can I build the skills and the tools needed so that I can be successful within that space?
Right. There's so many of us, you think about your 18-year-old self, right?
Yeah.
How many 18-year-olds are struggling with that right now? Right? Do I do what mommy and daddy are telling me to do, or am I doing what? And not saying don't do what your mom and dad say, but I'm just saying, am I doing this for me? Who am I doing this for? Right? Because that changes the trajectory of our life. So last final question, and I feel like you've already given us so many pieces of advice, and even myself, but if you could give advice to someone who wants to do the exact same role that you're currently in as an interim president of an HBCU, or even within just being in higher education, what advice would you give them to get to that goal?
There's so many nuggets, but one of the things that I would say, and it's funny, Charli, because you touched on this earlier, and when you said it, I said, ooh, I'm gonna come back to that, because that's super important. These roles, these jobs, these responsibilities, these titles, all these different things, regardless of what you want to call it, they all come down to the ability to be able to problem solve. Problem solving is something that you have to be able to do. And before you can solve a problem, you have to be able to identify a problem, right? And when you identify the problem, you have to be able to communicate how is the problem, why is the problem, and what can be done to solve the problem. And then you have to actually solve the problem, right? So I meet a lot of people who say, I want to be a president, or I want to be a vice president, I want to be a provost, I want to be a CFO. Pretty much what they're saying is, when people describe what they want to do or what they want to be, they're describing a title. A lot of times it's a title that pays a certain amount of money to solve problems, but no one ever says, I want to solve this problem. So years ago, I had this mindset shift of when I'm engaging my nieces and nephews, I stopped asking them what they wanted to do or what they wanted to be when they grew up. And I started asking them, what problem do you want to solve? Because there's so many problems in the world. There are so many problems. You have problems of poverty. You have problems of famine. You have problems dealing with education. You have problems of a digital divide. You have problems of equity. You have problems of healthcare. You have mortality rates, social justice in prison. You have just myriads of problems that exist. There's no shortage in problems. There may be a shortage of HBCU presidents because we only have 103. And so you technically have to get one of those 103. And sometimes you just can't. The job may not be open or whatever the case may be. But the problem exists. Those problems exist. And so my advice to people would say, stop thinking about what you want to do. Stop thinking about necessarily the title that you want to have. Start thinking about all of the problems that exist in the world, and start thinking about the skill sets that you have and how you can leverage those skills to solve those problems so that somebody's life, even if it's your own life, can be improved because of it. Let's start looking at things through that lens of solving problems versus obtaining a certain salary or position or title, because all of those things are going to come if you can be the person that solves a problem. I have never met someone who has been the best at solving a problem and they haven't been able to receive the type of compensation that they desired, or the notoriety that they desired, or the title that they desired. If you can solve a problem, you would get all of those things, regardless of what the problem is. And really quick, I'll give you an example. If you can solve a problem on a hockey, I don't even know what you call it, court, rink, whatever, right? If you can be somebody who can put the little black puck and solve the problem of it getting a goal, if you can be the best at solving that problem, you'll be Wayne Gretzky, right? If you can be the person to solve a problem, say, how can I get this little white ball to get inside of a cup 500 yards away? You can be Tiger Woods, because he figured out that problem. Whether it's chess or whether it's medicine or whether it's tea, if you can solve problems to say, hey, this is a problem that exists. How can I lend myself? How can I learn a skill, lend that expertise to solving that problem? You're going to win the day. You're going to get titles. You're going to get paid. You're going to get endorsements. You're going to get, all of those type of things. But most importantly, hopefully what you'll get is a sense of joy from being able to make somebody's life easier from the problem that you solve. So my piece of advice again would be, think about the world in your world, right? Because sometimes we live in different worlds. Think about your world, where you are. Think about the problems that exist, and then think about how you've been blessed in some capacity to be able to solve that problem, and get busy solving that problem. That's what I would say.
Wow. Drop the mic. You know what I mean? Like, I almost don't want to mess up the spirit right now. Sometimes you just need silence, right? And that's not too often that you get silence from Charli. But sometimes we just need silence, because that's powerful, right? Find a problem. Don't think about what title you want, or the position or the salary you want. What problem are you passionate about that you're willing to spend the time to solve it? Well, that is all we have today. I just want to again say, Dakota, thank you so much for volunteering your time. These people are not getting paid, and you're just willing to give this information out to help others, right? And it goes back to that service mindset that you have, and that your university is so lucky to have you, that we have to come together sometimes, volunteer our time to give back to others. And hopefully this podcast affords people that opportunity, right? That they can connect with us. They can research and say, hey, I want to know about higher education. I get on this podcast. I look to see, Dakota, higher education. Let's see what he has to say. Let me see what can I take from that. So I just appreciate you being here.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation for being here. You're doing such a wonderful job being able to use your skills to solve that particular problem and get the word out for these various industries. And so I'm so lucky and happy to be here. I can't wait to continue to watch the great things that you'll be doing within this platform. And I can say, I sat down with her one day. You have your hundreds of millions of viewers and all of those things. I can be like, listen, I remember. So congratulations to you as well. And thank you so much for allowing me to come into your space and share the things that I do and the things that I know.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
And that wraps up another episode of Chat with Charli. Thank you all so much for joining me today as we explore various topics aimed to help you take your career to new heights. I hope you found today's discussion valuable and insightful. Remember, growth comes from continuous learning and taking actionable steps towards your goals. I'd love to hear from you all about today's content. So connect with me on social media at Lennon Prep and leave a comment or question to keep this chat going. Be sure to tune in to next week's episode, where we'll dive deep into the minds of another industry professional. It's going to be another informative and engaging conversation that you won't want to miss. And if you like Chat with Charli, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support means the world to me and helps us reach more people ready to level up their expertise. Thank you again for being a part of our career advancement journey. And remember, strive for excellence, not perfection. Keep pushing forward and never stop investing in yourself. Until next time, bye.